Our next guest this morning certainly needs no introduction to you, to this audience. You know him. He is the governor of the great state of North Carolina, our chief executive, Pat McCrory. He's been with us a number of times, both as a governor and as a candidate. Governor, we're glad to have you with us today. With the governor this morning is John Skvarla. You heard Commissioner Troxler talk about the secretary. And just in the last week, he has switched secretaries. He was our Secretary of Department of Environmental and Natural Resources. He's been moved over to our new Secretary of Commerce. Secretary Skvarla has been with us at our leadership meetings. Let's join me in welcoming our governor and our Secretary of Commerce. Ladies and gentlemen, Governor McCrory, Secretary John Skvarla.
There's no meeting.
I'm sure there is.
Hey, Governor, how you doing?
Thanks for having
Good to see you.
Hello, Mr. Wooten.
Secretary, how you doing?
Thank you all very much.
Glad to have you with us. Well, ladies and gentlemen, are we mic'd up? Can everybody hear us okay? Certainly, this format lends itself very well to a nice conversation. I guess, Governor, we're glad to see some folks over there. We got you on screen.
Oh, great.
We got you on screen. Governor, I guess one of the things is, you know how important the Secretary's former job is to this group, to agriculture, to our marine fisheries and all that. Are you getting close, or have you made a decision in terms of who's going to succeed Secretary Skvarla over at Diener? That's an important question. People have already asked me to ask the governor that.
Well, let me first say I'm very fortunate to have decision to have John Skvarla move from Diener over to Commerce. Sharon Decker has just done an outstanding job as Commerce Secretary. She's one of the best salespeople for this state that I think this state has ever seen. And she's done a great job in reorganizing the Commerce Department, making it more customer friendly. And she's been following the same kind of guidelines that John Skvarla did in Diener, and that was making Diener more customer friendly and treating our constituents, both business constituents and all constituents, as customers. And he's gotten a lot of heat for that. I read often in the Raleigh News and Observer, how dare the Diener secretary treat people like customers, even over people that we're regulating. Well, if we're going to solve the problem, we got to build a relationship with people and make decisions. And you should treat people as peers, you should treat people as customers, and that's exactly what this guy has done. So he's going to be very hard to replace, but we're beginning the interview process this week. I'm going to be interviewing both internal and external candidates for Diener Secretary, like I've done for other openings that I've had. And John's going to help me participate in some of those interviews and help me make that decision. But John, any other things you want to mention? First of all, y'all need to give him a round of applause for his work as Diener and his willingness to take on the Commerce Secretary job. It's hard to find good talent. I'm very, very lucky.
Governor, thank you. I am on record saying you never want to speak after Pat McCrory or after Sharon Decker. How would you like to follow in her footsteps? It's a tall order. She's a remarkable person and has done a great job for the state of North Carolina. As far as the Diener side goes, I'm always perplexed that why it's incongruous to protect the environment and treat people with respect and dignity. Why is it that you can't be customer-centric and at the same time look out for the natural resources that we all cherish, which is air and water and mountains and beaches? They do not have to be incompatible. And for this theory to have emerged that you have to treat people with respect and dignity and help them through the maze of rules and regulations efficiently is not incompatible with protecting air and water. Who's going to live in North Carolina with dirty water and dirty air? Who's going to move their business to North Carolina with dirty water and dirty air? No one. So it's kind of a fallacy. I equate it to a hotel. If you check into a hotel and the desk clerk rips up your bill for your stay, that's cheating. But if it takes 3 hours to get your luggage to your room, that's poor customer service. So what we've done, and I think very successfully, is struck a balance between the fact that we must protect the environment, it's our benchmark, but we must be customer-centric. And people fail to realize that customers are not just individuals and companies, there are municipalities in our counties who also represent all the citizens of the state. So I'm very proud of what's happened at Diener. Our job is to navigate you through the rules and the regulations, this incredible maze of federal and state rules and regulations, and help you get through it efficiently. Because what do we all want at the end of the day? We want clean water and clean air, but we also want certainty. A terrible end is better than an endless terror. And historically, Diener has been an endless terror. So we have an environmental obligation and we have a customer obligation. And I think we balanced it, and we're going to take that. Sharon Decker's done a great job at Commerce with the same theory, and we're going to continue. And I am quite confident that the new Diener Secretary will understand that fully and live up to that obligation, the obligation that the governor has set from day one.
One of the requirements that I'll be looking for in the new Diener Secretary is give the customer an answer. Don't drag them out. And that's the major feedback that I got from the ag community, many other industries, especially manufacturing, is, will you just give us an answer? Let us know what the rules are instead of waiting month after month or teasing us with options. Tell us what the answer is and make sure the answer is something we can predict for years to come. And he's done a great job in that. That's one of the main things I'm going to be looking for, to ensure that whoever comes in and leads it communicates that culture within the organization all the way down the organization. The culture of customer service and the culture of giving a straight answer with no BS. Be to the point.
We certainly have enjoyed the relationship that we've had at North Carolina Farm Bureau with Secretary Skvarla as a Diener Secretary, and look forward to that in Commerce. Governor, I know you've got priorities, and we've got a new legislature coming in town in January. What do you see, and I asked you this last year, in terms, what do you see of the revenue picture for the state as we look at 2015 and some of your goals? I know you've got goals in terms of public infrastructure, public buildings. What do we look like right now on revenue?
It's unknown, although I look at the revenue picture every week with my revenue secretary and my budget director. Right now we're behind in revenue. But since we changed the whole tax system, since we lowered the income tax and the corporate tax now below South Carolina and Virginia, we're no longer the highest income tax in the Southeast, we're more dependent upon sales tax. And we will not really know the real true revenue picture probably until February, where we'll start seeing where the trends are, especially after the Christmas holiday, and then we'll get the final numbers in June. We're behind right now based upon the old calculation, but it's like comparing apples with oranges. But it is something that keeps me awake at night, just as you look at your own revenue and your own business. Is it coming in the way you projected it? And when it's a little behind, you're still anticipating the peak seasons of when revenue is anticipated, and that's what we're looking at right now. But in the meantime, by the way, I'm looking at our cost. I'm still trying to control our cost to prepare for any scenario that might happen in the economy. But we have some major things in our plate. I want to float over $1 billion transportation bond next year, so we increase road building on not only the primary roads, but some of the secondary roads. We have some major infrastructure issues regarding buildings throughout North Carolina, state buildings that are D- buildings that we're spending hundreds of millions, tens of millions of dollars in operating HVAC, roofs, and so forth. They're falling down, and some of these buildings aren't even worth repairing versus the cost of starting anew. And this is not only in Raleigh, but this is in towns throughout North Carolina. And we're introducing, in fact, John's working on this too, a program called Project Phoenix, although we're going to probably retitle it and call it Rebuild North Carolina. And we're looking at literally looking at all the state buildings in North Carolina and evaluating, is it worth it to put a new roof on or should start anew? And we're even evaluating the utilization of some of these state buildings. Some of these state buildings, frankly, have 20 to 30% utilization, and it makes no sense whatsoever to keep pouring money into this and not getting a return on investment. And we think this also might be a way to create new construction jobs throughout North Carolina. And some of these state buildings in our small towns are a real eyesore throughout the state, and we're wasting money on the operations of this at this point in time. And then Health and Human Services. We're looking at revamping Health and Human Services, reforming Medicaid, and making some tough decisions in that area.
Well, certainly we applaud you in looking at the efficiency of state government and the wise use of whatever tax dollars that we have coming in.
Real quick, I've got some pay issues I'm going to have to deal with too. We gave the teachers a good pay raise this year. My biggest pay issue right now is actually regarding our prison guards at our high security prisons. Their starting salary is $28,000 a year for a 12-month job. And these men and women are being threatened every week, and it's another area that keeps me awake at night. I had 2 prison guards who were slashed last week by gang members in some of our prisons, and these are the operational issues that I have to deal with, and I have to protect these employees, and right now their pay is outrageous, and I'm having a tough time keeping anyone who wants to work in our prisons. So, those are operational issues that I have to deal with. When I came into the governor's office, I remember when Ann and I were getting sworn in and walking to the old state capitol building, the 2 fountains in front of the state capitol building, built in 1841, had trash in it, and they weren't working, and they were nasty. And I walked by and I went, God, that's kind of sad that this old fountain's broken, 2 fountains. And 3 weeks later, after I was governor, I kept walking by the fountains, and they still had trash and just nasty. And I finally asked someone, I said, why aren't these fountains working? And they said, oh, they've been broken for 5.5 years. As though that's just the way the culture is. And that's unacceptable. And I'm not talking about fountains. We found that out about a lot of things in state government. Some IT systems, well, it was just broken. And those are the issues that we've had to deal with in our first year and a half as governor, is just a culture of letting things go and realizing that costs the taxpayers more money in the long run if you don't fix things when they're initially broken. And I'll mention one other thing, is in education. We need to continually put more money and more strategy into vocational education. I promised that when I came here a year ago, and we're really emphasizing a skills shortage. We have a skills shortage right now with mechanics, electricians, future ag farmers. The average age of an ag farmer right now, or people in agriculture, is 57 years old. Who are the next 20 to 30-year-olds who are getting into this? And where's the talent? And I'm stressing to my universities and to my 2-year community schools and to my high schools, we better start targeting our education to where we have skills gaps. And that's where I'm going to put the money. I'm going to pull the money out of areas where we have an overabundance of certain majors or certain disciplines that aren't filling the skills gaps of North Carolina.
Governor, I heard you say that about the age of the farmers and the young farmers. I'm going to invite you. We have a young farmer conference every January.
I'm going to invite
you. We have in January about 400 to 500 young farmers from across the state that convene close to Raleigh. So you can run out there, and I want you to see the technology, the spirit, the enthusiasm of these young farmers. And it's not just what's going on in agriculture now. It's not just those that are out there producing the food and fiber that are planting and plowing. It's that big, today's agriculture, you need a big support group behind you in technology, research, extension, agribusiness, so the industry, the total industry, those planting and plowing maybe, but there's a large group behind them.
We have to have that.
They're important.
I'd love to do it, and we have to have this new skill workforce, because ag is helping us get out of this recession. I mean, ag's had a good year in about every major area.
Sure.
And I said 2 years ago when I came here that ag is going to help lead North Carolina out of this recession, and it has. And I'm proud of y'all.
One of the things I wanted to ask you, you mentioned your transportation and the $1 billion, and a couple of people we've talked about it said, is $1 billion enough? And what will it do for our rural communities? You mentioned it briefly. What would be your plans on that for our rural roads, bridges, and helping our farmers in terms of some getting crops to market, so on and so forth? What would be your major goals for this transportation as it deals with farms, agriculture, and rural North Carolina?
First of all, $1 billion is not enough. And we're going to be making 2 or 3 different proposals to the legislature to go beyond $1 billion. And we're doing the math right now. But we definitely need to do the $1 billion to get some road projects off the planning stages that have all the environmental permits, and they've been sitting on the sideline for 5 to 10 years. And if we borrow $1 billion against our existing revenue, we can get some of these projects done that have been sitting and languishing and costing more money as we stall. You know, North Carolina's transportation system has been, as you travel the state, you go from 2 lanes to 8 lanes to 2 lanes to 4 lanes. Y'all know what I'm talking about? Have y'all ever noticed that? And wherever it's wider, it's named after a DOT member or a state senator or a governor. That's not coincidental. That means we're making road decisions based upon where the politicians just happen to live, as opposed to other factors, including economic development, safety, and congestion. And what we've done then during the last 25 years is created these choke points where the roads go like this, and then wherever the choke point is, it hurts you in getting your product to the marketplace. And so what our road plan now is connecting the marketplaces with the small rural towns, because no small rural town can live on an island by itself. We have to connect them to the economic regions of the state, whether it be Asheville or Charlotte or the Triad, the Triangle, Greenville, Wilmington, you name it, or even to Hampton Roads or to Tennessee or to South Carolina. I'm not even letting the state boundaries determine where we put our roads, because the state boundaries are for politicians. I'm looking at the economic boundaries where you could get your product to the port or to the economic center that it needs to be transported to, and also where you can get your labor. And that's how we're now building the future road program of North Carolina and rail program of North Carolina. We're tying our rail and our roads to our ports. We're going to be upfitting our ports. For example, we're getting refrigeration for the first time in Wilmington, and our next goal is to get refrigeration also in the Moorhead port.
All of this infrastructure is certainly important, as you've said, and it's been your goal to, along with the commissioner, and certainly our goal, to get us from a $77 billion industry to $100 billion, 120. In terms of infrastructure, roads is certainly an important part, the facilities at the ports. In terms of science and technology, what do you see as some areas that can really help us get to our goals in terms of getting agriculture to $120 billion?
Well, first of all, there's several areas that we're looking at. John and I are going to be working very closely on this in commerce. We're working very close with NC State, North Carolina A&T, UNC Charlotte, and our major engineering schools. And by the way, that also includes Duke. I do not segregate between public and private. We've got to work as a team. And I'm working very close with the biotech industry and other industries and energy industry, which is very, very important to you right now, because we have to get cheaper energy to our rural areas. And that's why, for example, I'm working on the technology. John and I are working with Duke and Dominion to make sure we get the natural gas line that's coming in from West Virginia, which will provide natural gas that we desperately need in the eastern part of the state, especially for the ag community. So we're working on that technology and that permitting also on the energy field. We're also working on the biotech field. In fact, I'm most likely will be going overseas with this guy in the near future, where we're going to be talking to European companies who want to take advantage of our ag industry and bring new ag technology to this area. The Norwegian countries right now are very, very interested in North Carolina, and our major competition is Iowa and California in some of our new industries. But we see a great advantage to North Carolina, and we're having some very, very successful recruitment efforts. And then we're working very closely with the universities where we can commercialize more of this technology. We've done too many studies and haven't patented this technology. And the third part of this area is we're also looking for more investors. One of the weaknesses we have in North Carolina is we don't have enough venture capital investors in our North Carolina area. And we're bringing them, and I'm working with the Chancellor Woodson in NC State and some other efforts to do just that. John, do you have anything else to add to that?
Yeah, I guess 3 things. One is the governor did fix the fountains. It didn't take very much money to put new pumps in the fountains at the governor's mansion. He forgot to say that, but you need to walk by. They're beautiful. And it's just the simple inattention to detail and accepting the fact that we have beautiful fountains that are full of trash that we could put a new pump in and make them work. So it's little things like that. But 2 things on the technology side. One is broadband benefits everybody. It benefits the agricultural community. It benefits all of the companies that will operate in North Carolina. And if we are going to help rural communities, we have to focus very heavily on broadband. And 2, and this is just a concept at this point in time, and I'll take all the heat for it. But you know, we give tax incentives for renewable energy. Why can't we start giving tax incentive for technologies that benefit agriculture? There's anaerobic technologies. There are all kind of environmental issues that apply to agriculture that you as stewards of the environment are very cognizant of and very mindful of. But there are also technologies that can help you be more efficient. We need to think in terms of maybe expanding that tax credit concept that we do for renewable energy into the agricultural technology side of the equation. I think it could help accelerate technologies that will help you all.
Secretary Skvarla, in your new role, what would be a main priority that you would have as you hit the road in your new role as Commerce Secretary?
Well, the good news is that Sharon Decker has done a remarkable job, and there are 2 things happening. One is that the new private partnership has been created. PPP, the public-private partnership, is now in existence, which will make us much more efficient. And the private side is basically responsible for what I'll call the preliminary stage, you know, recruiting and identifying and qualifying companies, and then the public side takes over relative to the incentives and the close and so forth. So my priority number 1 is to make sure that that transition is smooth and easy and follows the letter of the law, and make sure that we keep the lines very, very clear on that. Number 2, again, Secretary Decker has done a marvelous job. There's a fair amount of stuff in the pipeline. And so I want to make sure that we grow organically. You know, the cheapest customer you can get is organic growth that we already have. We need to help our existing citizens grow their businesses and their operation. But then secondarily, we got to make sure that we harvest that pipeline and keep it very, very full.
I'll mention a couple things too. Energy is going to be a major part of our platform. I'm supporting this pipeline coming into the east for natural gas. I'm going to look for natural gas in mainly the Sandhills area of North Carolina, and we're going to be looking at, I'm going to begin seismic testing off the coast of North Carolina for oil and gas. And we've been waiting. North Carolina's been on the sideline in the area of energy for 25 years. And if we're going to get new revenue to come in with North Carolina, that the energy is the best source. And so we've sat on the sideline for far too long with regard to energy. And I promised when I became governor, we're going to start that process and hope to have some success. But we got to find out what we have.
Yeah, I think
because I've got to get, you know, energy prices are doing real well regarding gas and so forth, but our electric prices are still rather high in certain areas of the state, and we've got to gain more access to energy in certain areas of the state. And why not have that energy come from North Carolina?
Well, North Carolina Farm Bureau applauds your effort in this area of energy. Particularly, we support that Atlantic Coast pipeline coming down with natural gas.
Absolutely.
Particularly those underserved communities. Energy is a huge cost for our state's farmers and agricultural agribusinesses, and we certainly support.
And we've got to also encourage the energy usage with the waste issue, which is going to be a huge issue. The environmentalists are going to be going on us on a big deal. I mean, if you watched 60 Minutes last night, I was on 60 Minutes, but they're hitting us from all angles, and we anticipate that the next area where they're going to put a lot of pressure. We got to do the right thing, but we've got to also give encouragement to protect our farmers while also protecting our environment. One other thing that I do want to mention where I'm going to need the Farm Bureau's help, and that is the historical tax credit. The small towns of North Carolina, the towns of between 10 and 30 and 40,000 people, the small town is the living room of our rural areas. And a lot of our small towns, due to the downfall of the economy, we have abandoned buildings. And if we're ever going to get reinvestment back in those abandoned buildings, we have to have the historical tax credit. And I'm very sorry that when it was sunsetted last year, it wasn't reinstated. But if we're going to get new investment in these new small towns, I've got to have that historical tax credit, because an abandoned building shows a region that the economy is hurting, and therefore people will not want to go into a region where they see vacant, abandoned buildings. And I've got to encourage new investment in those areas. And I need your help with the historical tax credit, and it really applies more than anything to small town North Carolina.
Well, we're here to help you because we know, agriculture knows, our farmers know now that you can't have healthy and prosperous farms without healthy and prosperous rural communities and small towns.
And that helps you recruit new talent.
It's an integral part of the whole rural economic development.
So we need your help in that area. Please contact my Senate and House members come January to reinstate that historical tax credit, because there's nothing worse than an abandoned building in a small town. It shows blight, it shows a lack of economic future, and once you start that investment, that means we'll start recruiting that talent, we increase the quality of life, and it's a win-win for everybody.
But we certainly appreciate your concern for not just the small towns, but for all of North Carolina. We thank you for the job you do. Secretary Skvarla, our door is always open to you. We look forward to working with you. Is there anything else? We could sit here and talk all day about the needs of North Carolina and the opportunities and the possibilities for our great state. But we thank you for your diligence and your caring and your willingness to work on these issues to make our state better. Is there anything that we've missed that you want to add to?
Well, I think our biggest challenge is going to be health care in the future. Still, we, with the Supreme Court case coming up, with the national Obamacare, everything's up in the air at this point in time. But I've got to lower the cost of health care while at the same time improving the quality of service. When I came into office, there was a $535 million misforecast on the cost of Medicaid. And we've got to get control of the cost of Medicaid while also improving the service. If we do not have Medicaid reform, we're not going to have enough money for education and roads. And that's going to be a major issue of mine. I've joined in with a suit with the feds regarding some of what the president's doing right now, because I've got to make sure we also have the rule of law in certain areas. But the main thing to me, too, in the future is to fill the skills gap of North Carolina in education. We've got to train people on what you need for the next generation, what they need for the next generation. And that's why I put so much emphasis on vocational training. And I'm not going to let up on that one bit, both with our high schools, our 2-year schools, and our 4-year schools.
Thank you, Secretary Skvarla. Last word.
Larry, thank you. Your support has been invaluable. We so much appreciate the relationship with you and your organization. You've been great. And for whatever it's worth, we don't get much bounce in the media, but please rest assured we are aware of and are fixing these operational issues, just like you have to do that in your organizations every day. We don't get much hype for it, but we are fixing it. And you can rest assured we're doing everything we can to get this state running as efficiently as possible.
And I'm proud to report today that our credit cards almost paid off to the federal government. When I came into office, we owed $2.6 billion for unemployment compensation. We decided we're the only state not to expand unemployment, and our payments were higher than than South Carolina, Tennessee, and Virginia. We lowered the payments, and we're paying off our debt. That $2.6 billion is now down to less than $400 million that we owed the federal government. We've cut off the credit card, and We hope to have it paid off by next year, which means you'll have more money in your pocket regarding unemployment, the money you pay for unemployment. And to me, that will be a huge difference for small and large businesses alike in North Carolina. I'm not getting on the credit card anymore to the federal government. We're going to pay off that bill, and it's working in North Carolina. So thank you all very much. Appreciate it. It's an honor.
Ladies and gentlemen,
Thanks for your work.
Let's give them a big round of applause. Thank you very much, Governor.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Thank you for everything. You guys have been terrific with this, and I appreciate it. I'm going to need even more.
Thank you all very much.
I know.